Welcome this morning. Kind of in a break from our usual routine. Because of the nature of the program this morning, we ask that you hold your applause of appreciation and just let us kind of go through the entire program. Also, there's no offertory in the service, but there are baskets as you leave the chapel if you would like to make your usual offertory contribution to the work of the church.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the glowing of the wind, in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of winter, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. And when we have joys and yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
Good morning. Today we gather together to honor, remember, celebrate, and grieve those who have passed on in the past year. I invite you to close your eyes if it feels safe to do so, and picture someone who you know who has died in the past year. It could be somebody from church or somebody from your life outside the church, somebody close to you, somebody you didn't know that well, maybe somebody that you wished you knew better, or someone you had a complicated relationship with. Or maybe it was somebody to whom you had said everything you needed to say. Whoever that person is, I invite you to hold them in your heart as we light our chalice today. We light it in honor of them. Please open your eyes if you have not done so already. This morning, our homily will be delivered by one of our lay ministers, Darlene THAYNE, who will be speaking on April's lay ministry theme of transformation.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. Thus begins A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I'm going to tell you today about several transformations during the best of times and the worst of times in two people, my father and myself. Arch Melvin Peterson was the middle child and oldest boy of 6 who grew up on a farm in Riverton, Utah. His father was a leader in that community, though he had never graduated from high school. The emphasis back then was to work on the farm to support the family. However, Arch really loved learning and excelled in the school spelling bees and writing poetry, and had one of the leads in the school musical, which he loved. He even skipped a grade in school because of his ability to learn quickly. Dad confidently set his sights on going to college, first at Utah State and then the University of Utah, which he had to pay for himself through renting and cultivating a 40-acre farm and selling books and magazines door to door. He was a tall, handsome, at least I think so, gregarious, witty, gifted, and confident young man with hopes, dreams, and plans. When World War II became a reality, he quit school and said that he joined the Navy so that he wouldn't feel like a leech on his country, and he wanted to do his part, so his personal ambitions were put on indefinite hold. He was assigned the station of Hospital Corps First Class, where at a naval hospital in San Diego, through on-the-job training, he was taught how to suture wounds, among other things. Dad, still just a kid really, put in for active duty and was sent to Pearl Harbor to board the USS Honolulu, which received several awards for its valor and some epic battles. He was also stationed in the South Pacific on several other light cruisers, which also saw a lot of action in combat. He was assigned to independent duty, which meant that he was the medical department on his particular ship. After reading every medical book he could get his hands on with sections on surgery, pharmacy, chemistry, nursing, and other subjects, he was promoted to first-class pharmacist mate. He took that role very seriously and decided that his shipmates all needed booster shots and vaccines, which he administered, diagnosed gallstones and other illnesses, gave shots of morphine when necessary, and sewed up and bandaged every kind of wound. In one particularly horrible battle, my father, while bleeding from a serious wound himself, remained on deck to save another man's life during a barrage of torpedo fire. He often allowed us kids to feel the shrapnel that remained in his arm from that battle. They were both sent to the mainland to heal, but when he was well enough to travel, my dad requested to be sent back to the exact same battleship to finish out his tour. When he got there, he was surprised by an onboard ceremony where he was presented with the Purple Heart for being wounded in battle and the Silver Star, which had been formally requested by his shipmates through the military command for risking his own life to save another soldier in the heat of battle. It is the third highest naval honor awarded after the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross. He was called up to the deck in dungarees and was dumbfounded when they presented him with these two medals. They're generally pinned on the military uniform in a formal ceremony, but they just handed him the two medals because he had no shirt on. This was so special to him to see how beloved and honored he was by those men with whom he served. Then, as he returned home, there were dinners held in his honor and newspaper articles about his meritorious service conduct during the war. It turns out that he also received a presidential citation as well as a Philippine Liberation Ribbon, whatever that is. Now for the hard part. At the end of World War II, Dad came home from the war in his early 30s as a hero of sorts, but addicted to alcohol and cigarettes with a lot of PTSD and no enthusiasm to pursue his dream of becoming a doctor. He no longer fit into his happy little Mormon community and became a bit of an outcast, which caused a serious loss of self-confidence. So he got married and became a butcher, or meat cutter as we now call them, at various stores around Salt Lake. But his favorite was a local iconic grocery store called Emigration Market. He remarks in his life story that he was honored to have made casual friendships with 4 governors while working there. However, because of his discouragement, he continued drinking and became a functioning alcoholic for most of his life. After work, he would immediately get a brown paper bag of cheap wine from the back of his closet and begin drinking until he became blurry-eyed and mean. I was one of the first baby boomer generation and grew up with a very angry and distant father who constantly berated his wife and other ethnicities, think Archie Bunker, and was too involved with alcohol to get involved with his children's lives or much else for that matter. In short, he was a deeply wounded soul. Growing up with that as a backdrop, I remember believing that I hated my father, though I just longed for him to be there for us as a family. I reeked of cigarettes, so I never would consider smoking, and I would go to bed at night listening to his loud, abusive language. In hurt and anger, I would often get out of bed and defend my mother against him. It wasn't a healthy environment to grow up in. She was the Relief Society president, and he was an abusive, chain-smoking alcoholic who was rejected and judged by his community. At that time, I saw the Mormon Church as a safe haven for me. I clung to it desperately, without realizing the damaging consequences of some of its teachings, namely perfection in the celestial kingdom. Although I often repeated the words, church should be a hospital for sinners, not a sanctuary for saints. Now for the other kind of transformation. Shortly after his retirement, and as he began to heal from some of the pressures of life, my dad had the amazing strength to quit drinking, cold turkey, with no help and no fanfare that I can remember. He became a lovely grandpa who loved and doted on his grandchildren and was a much better grandpa than he ever was a father. My heart began to heal as I saw him become the man I had wished so desperately to have seen in my young life. But better late than never. After he passed away of lung cancer at age 74, I began, ever so slowly, to carefully reconstruct his path of transformation, both negative and positive. I had not been so much an angry person as a damaged, hurt person, so I had some healing to do in order to live my life in a more intentional way. I retyped his biography, and autobiography it was, and read and reread it. Then I did some homework about the war and his part in it. I discussed him a lot with my siblings, who had varied feelings and opinions about him, and I began to forgive. A crucial transformation took place in my heart, beginning with questions, then understanding, and then empathy, which has made all the difference for me to become a more whole person. So there you have it. 3 stories of transformation, one quite tragic and the others of healing. I appreciate being able to tell you these stories today, as this is another step for me in my healing process. It is my wish that we can all use these messy stories of our lives to understand and transform ourselves in positive ways. It sure isn't easy, but it sure is worth it, in my opinion.
In his play, Our Town, Thornton Wilder offers an existential meditation on the meaning of life and death, as it relates both to community and to the individual. In the small town of Grover's Corner, the narrator observes the lives and deaths of various members, some already in the cemetery, of our town. He notes their desires to be recognized and remembered. Just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. Just look at me 1 minute as though you really see me. How often do we have clarity of vision in regard to our loved ones after they're gone? Related, Wilder writes of their need to be connected and blessed by the ties that bind. Their fears, their hopes and cares, our heart's human love. Everyone knows that time goes by, we do know that. But that doesn't lessen the shock when that time seemingly stops with the loss of a loved one. Just like that, our world changes. And yet in the play, Wilder conjectures that perhaps, though even the stars are eternal, are we? Or is our being reliant on those who remember us? But then, what happens when that memory is gone?
the names of those in our congregation who we have lost in the past year. Reverend Hugh Gilliland, Anne Prince, Charles Chuck Bryan Smith, Peter Grundfossen, Dorothy Mullins. We now open up for anyone to name someone who you have lost in the past year.
Steve Constantine.
Mark Franco.
Elizabeth Jean Heil.
God, you want.
Hillary Johnson.
Rosalie Watkins's. Together we remember them.
This poem was written by my son, ETHAN CONE-UEMURA, in 2014, shortly before he died, and was published in his school's literary magazine, West Winds. We've been told this country is going to change. Let's start by keeping our pistols in the shooting range. They say, take away guns and killers just turn to knives. But do you think if those boys from Columbine walked in with a blade, they could take that many lives? Ever miss a payment or interest on your student loan? They can come to your house and repossess everything you own. They promote any couple like Barbie and Ken, but they'll say no if you try to wed two men. They say change is sweeping the nation, but if you look at how we treat minorities and God's creations, you'll see we haven't come that far since emancipation. They have little freedom left, like a heart in a chest, while their whole family is starving to death. The media has been taken over by greed and misogyny, penthouses, Lamborghinis, and tables made of mahogany. There's a difference between what we need and what they gave. America, land of the free and home of the brave.
Come with me to the old churchyard. I so well know those paths neath the soft green sward. Friends slumber in there that we want to regard. We will trace up their names in the old churchyard. Mourn not for them, for their trials are o'er. Why weep for those who will weep no more? For sweet is sleep, though cold and hard, their pillows may be in the old churchyard. I know that it's vain when our friends depart to breathe kind words to a broken heart, and I know that the joy of life is gone when we follow lost friends to the old churchyard. But were I at rest beneath yonder tree, why would you weep, my friends, for me? I'm so weary, so wayworn, why would you return? The peace I seek in the old churchyard. Why weep for me, for I'm anxious to go to that haven of rest where no tears ever flow. And I fear not my fate when it's time to depart. I will set with the sun in the old churchyard.
Nature's first green is gold. Her hardest hue to hold, her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay.
When he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night and pay no worship to the garish sun.
Peace, my heart. Let the time for the parting be sweet. Let it not be a death, but completeness. Let love melt into memory and pain into song. Let the flight through the sky end in the folding of wings over the nest. Let the last touch of your hands be gentle, like the flower of the night. Stand still, O beautiful end, for a moment, and say your last words in silence. I bow to you and hold up my lamp to light you on your way.
As we close our service today, I invite you once again to close your eyes. Picture that person who you lost this year. And picture a moment you had with them. Their facial expression, what they were wearing. Know that you will carry a piece of them inside of you for the rest of your days. And know that they are held by a love greater than any of our understandings. Now hold them tightly in your heart and let them go. Together we remember.
That concludes our memorial service today. Thank you for joining us.